So we are recording and we are live.
Okay. So we do have a quorum, but we'll see. Can you check the attendees and see if Rich Tracer or Karen Sakanua is in the attendees?
Will do. I actually just migrated over Dennis Morrell, and I'm migrating over Greg Earls as well from the building office to panelist status, just so that they could speak as well. I know that you've got some EDA coordination they might be involved with.
Okay, great.
Great.
And is Andrea Egmont with us yet?
Not yet.
Okay, she said she's coming. She just won't be able to stay the whole meeting, but she is planning to be here. But we could get sort of started. Yeah, Kristen,
Yep, I'm here. Sorry, I was just making a note for myself. So hi, everyone. I guess maybe we could start out with some introductions because we have a couple of new faces joining us here. So Jenny, do you want to start with that?
Yeah, that's fine. So it looks like we have Greg Earls, who is going to be the new building inspector, and I can't see the names.
Dennis Morrell.
Dennis Morrell is the assistant building inspector, and I believe the ADA coordinator is the hat he'll be wearing when it does eventually switch over from Andrea. And so it makes sense if they have anything they want to include in any of our conversations that they're here. But
so did you want to introduce
Brian.
yourself, Jenny, in case, does everybody know everybody?
No. So
okay.
Yeah, Dennis, I don't know, and I'm assuming no one else does either. Some of us might know Greg. So for their sake, let's do a round of introductions. Jenny Donahue, Chair of the Disability Commission.
I'll go next. I'm Kristen Farrell. I'm the Secretary of the Commission. Colin, I see you next on my screen. Would you like to go next?
I'm Colin. Sorry. I don't know.
Commissioner, thank you. Sean, you're up next in the Brady Bunch? Oh, Sean, you're on mute.
Sean Flaherty, Commissioner, technically challenged, but always
It's 2021, there. Sean, come on. Lisa?
Hi, everybody. Lisa Rowan. A couple of years on the commission. I'm in a wheelchair, so that's some of my background. Longtime resident of Newburyport.
Brian?
I'm Brian Greenberg, and I've been on the commission for about 4 years or so, and I am a transcriber in my career for students in college and high school who are deaf or hard of hearing.
Okay, I think that is all of us. Greg and Dennis, if you want to introduce yourselves. Greg just stepped away from his chair, so maybe if Dennis would like to unmute, or we can just move on to our, oh, there's Greg, he's back. Greg, you're on mute also.
Dennis is having a problem unmuting and getting video going on his.
Okay.
Yes, there's some connection problem here. So Dennis will come here with me.
Hi, I'm Dennis.
Hi.
Dennis.
Fair enough. That's
Okay.
fine.
Oh, sorry about that.
Masking up. Okay, great. Good. Well, thank you both for joining us.
Yeah, we're glad you're here.
Thank you.
And this is Andy, if I could, I'm here to host these meetings for you, just given the pandemic and everything. And I suspect Zoom is going to go on for some time after that. But I did just send to Greg and to Dennis your panelist invites for future meetings, just so you have it.
Great, thank you.
Perfect. So we have hearing from other members and public comment.
Sure. So I did not get it on the agenda, but Sean, do you want to just comment on your experience over at the courthouse?
Sure. So by just driving by, I just noticed the cars that are parked out front all the time. And I wanted to investigate to see if there's any handicap parking there. So I stopped by, walked around, and there was no handicap parking. There's usually at least 4 cars parked there on the dirt. And so no signs, no handicap parking. I found the ramp that Lisa, you talked about, and there was a white sign, 8.5 by 11 in the window or by the door. And I thought, well, that might be helpful for a handicapped person. And the sign said, watch out for falling glass. And then so I went around to the front, and so they have a falling glass problem.
Glass, not ice, glass.
Glass, yeah. I sent, yesterday I sent an email. I haven't heard back yet from the ADA coordinator for the courthouse, just in a nice way, introducing myself, introducing the commission, and without trying to, be in their face, just ask about handicap parking. So I said that I looked over the website, and it talks about parking, but nowhere says anything about handicap parking. And one thing, now I'm not sure, and Greg, you might know, Dennis, or is the grounds outside the courthouse, is that city property? Or
It's all by the state. So we actually got a complaint about a sign, about the sign of the falling glass, I'd say 2 weeks ago. And we took a ride by there. I took a ride by there with the other inspector, and we talked to the head maintenance guy that was there, and he kind of explained to us that they were old and they've been complaining to the state that they need to be rehabbed. So we called John Bennett, the state building inspector, who then kind of put it on his radar. He had a meeting with them the following day. So I know they had an architect in there, I think last week, surveying all the windows. Now, I didn't know about the handicap, so I didn't say anything about the handicap, but this is something the spaces, this is something I could probably talk to John Bennett about again. And I mean, because he's got the firepower when it comes to fixing something like this, because it's his jurisdiction.
Right. Well, it does make sense. I mean, if they're going to have any amount of parking, there needs to be at least one spot that's handicap accessible, marked for handicap specifically. So maybe if you could sort of put that on his radar as well, that would be fantastic. And we'll see if anything comes of it.
And didn't you say that the handicap parking spot should be right by the ramp? I'm not sure.
Yes, actually, the whole building is just kind of interesting because a handicapped person can't open that door. It's locked. So you have to go around front, let somebody know that you're there, and then go wait by the door.
How many parking spaces they have now total?
They created 4.
So they have 4 total. So then they owe us a minimum of 1.
Wait, there's only 4 parking spaces in that courthouse?
It's just in front of the courthouse. And I don't remember them being parking spaces as years ago. It was always just the grass and the gravel.
Right. There's nothing if you go around it on the Route 1 facade, nothing there?
No.
Really?
Yeah.
Wait, we're talking about
Superior Courthouse.
at the mall though, right?
Yes.
Oh,
This
okay.
is at the, okay, I'm sorry, I'm talking about the other one. I apologize.
Yeah, we're talking about the Superior Courthouse up at the mall.
Okay.
So there's some
Okay.
issues there
Okay.
with accessibility
So
for
wait,
sure.
does the other courthouse, the Cherry Street courthouse, have an issue with falling glass also?
It did, but we're all over that one.
Oh my gosh,
What a
that's two, huh?
coincidence.
So
Right?
forget about that one.
What are the odds?
I
Two
know, right?
courthouses with
Yikes.
falling glass.
Old windows.
Scary.
Well, the one on Cherry Street's not that old.
It's, yeah, the one-
Right.
that's why I was surprised. That's why I'm surprised.
Yeah. Oy. Okay. So yeah, we are talking about the one up at High Street. If they can take a look at some of their access issues into the building and the parking, that would be great.
I think actually the only parking are for judges and clerks, right?
Yeah, I'm assuming that's what those 4 or 5 cars are.
Right.
But you know, if they're using the space for parking, there does need to be a handicap accessible spot.
Yep. That'd be
They
one.
could have, you know, a staff member that may need it someday. So either way, it's something that they should have at least a drop-off zone, if nothing else. But by the door, by the handicap door, and that door should be at the very least have a doorbell or some sort of system, you know, audio
There
system
should
to get
be.
buzzed in, like a
Right.
buzzer system like the schools have. You know, why not that instead of that's not accessible, you know? So yeah, let's try to follow up with that if we can. That would be great. And thank you,
Thank you.
Sean,
Yeah.
for taking the time to go and walk around there and take a better look for us. I appreciate that.
Okie dokie.
Okay, and we don't have anyone in the attendees list, correct?
There's no one there right now, no.
Okay, I can't actually see it, so I don't
Okay.
know.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can just go into the agenda. It doesn't look like Andy Egmont is here yet either.
No.
Okay.
Maybe we can skip over the. Oh,
I did
sorry.
go with her to the tannery. Is that an update?
That will be part of it, yeah. So we'll definitely tap you for that, for sure. So, okay, Kristen, what do I have here?
So we have the budget update. I have been reaching out to Ethan Manning, who usually is good about getting back to me. So I'm not sure, but I haven't heard back from him since maybe February. So I will send another email to Melissa and see if I can get our updates.
Okay.
I do have, let me just scan the other agenda items to see if so I did get, I guess related to the budget, I did get an updated spreadsheet from with the parking citations report, and they were able to reallocate the format for us so that it will at least tell us what the issue date of the parking violation was, as well as the zone type of violation. So instead of an actual address, it will say on street or waterfront trust lot, or it says NRA East lot.
Okay, so there's going to be
So it's a
some
little bit of a
indication.
ballpark at least, but it
Right.
tells us when the ticket was issued and when it was paid, and then the
Okay.
amount. So for the first, so for Q3 of this year, from January 1st to March 31st, there were 13 citations paid, and that total is $1,350.
Okay.
So 8 of those were on-street violations, 4 were violations in the waterfront trust lot, and 1 was in the NRA East lot.
Okay. Okay.
So,
All right.
So that is the
Let's-
budget and parking update.
Okay, that's fine for now.
Next on our list is the Pioneer League area roadwork. Additional ramps needed, but cost may be a problem.
Yeah, so this is something I wanted to bring up. I've been following the project over on Merrimack Street with the restriping and all the plans that they have for sort of reworking the parking, the crosswalks. And they were discussing one of the crosswalks that technically should have, they would like to have a crossing one way and then another way, where they ultimately would need 3 ramps. And I think it was John Eric White who was speaking, and my ears perked up because he said that they probably wouldn't do all 3. They would just do one and do one crossing. And Councillor Vogel luckily read my mind as my brain started exploding at why wouldn't we just do all 3. He asked that question, and it was just because it might be cost prohibitive. So I would like us to consider helping out with that project with our funds if they do in fact need that extra amount of money for infrastructure for the ramps. Otherwise, you know, it's just going to be less access. And I really firmly believe that that whole area really deserves as much access as possible. And I actually learned a really interesting little fact about the Pioneer League was actually formed back in the day because the local Little League teams would not accept special needs students.
Wow.
And so they created the Little League. I mean, they created the Pioneer League specifically with that premise. And it just made my head spin to think about, you know, so I do think it's a worthy project for us to help out with. I don't know what they need yet. They might need upwards of 20 or 25,000 if the city puts in 50 or 40,000. We just don't know really what the cost estimates are yet. But I do know that we have some money we can play with. But of course, I want it to be something that we're all in agreement on spending our money on. I mean, it is, you know, that the money that we collect is definitely specifically for improvements to our residents with disabilities and removal of barriers and all city owned, you know, situations. So it's, you know, we can't ever help out with the private business. But this is something that I think we could help with that could actually benefit quite a few families and in the neighborhood as well, not just for, you know, when there's games, but access in that area as pedestrian is pretty spotty. So they really could use those additional crossings and ramps. So
Jenny, can you
Jenny,
explain? Oh,
yeah,
sorry, Lisa, go
I
ahead.
was just
We're
gonna
probably-
say, if you could paint a picture of where that actually is.
Right, so I'm just trying to envision Merrimack Street. If you're coming from downtown, headed towards the Mosley, on the left is, on the right are some on-street parking spaces. On the left are the perpendicular to the field parking spaces. So where are the crosswalks that they're trying to start and end? Like how, if it's crossing Merrimack Street from one side of parking to the other, what
not
are
at
the
parking.
ramps?
It's not at the parking area. It's at one of the streets. And I can't remember which street it was. The conversation was so quick and they were talking about Plummer Ave a lot. They were talking about Mosley Ave. They were talking about several different streets in that area and talking about the safety zone and talking about where they want to put some crossings that are not necessarily where the parking is, but at street intersections. And I apologize that I don't have better ability for note taking, but
No, that's
I can
fine.
find out
Yeah.
when I can find out from Councilor Wallace, specifically the streets that we're talking about. But it, you know, it did come up and
so
think
when you're
it's-
mentioning ramps, you're basically talking about the curb cut the tactile
Yes.
strips
Yep.
and the
Exactly.
grade of cement. Okay.
Yep. So what does everybody think of us helping out with our resources that we have at our disposal to ensure that that project doesn't get shortchanged because they don't have the funding for those extra ramps?
I think it's a very busy area, often used whether there's a game or not. Lots
Yeah.
of children, so my vote is it's quite worthy.
Okay.
I feel the
Should
same
we-
way.
Should we maybe take a roll call vote to say, okay, we'll allocate those funds when we
I
get
would like
called
some more
upon?
information, Jenny, before
Okay.
we vote, because I'm hesitant, not to be the devil's advocate, but I feel like if I don't see how you can not, if you're completing a crosswalk across from a street at intersection from corner to corner or whatnot, I don't understand how that could even be an issue. Like, oh, well, we might only do one and not three because we don't have the funding. I don't know how that can fly. I agree that I'm in support of certainly that whole area being much safer, and up and down that street often between here, my end of town and downtown. But I that doesn't sit well with me when they say, oh, well, we can't afford it and we don't have the budget for it. And I guess I would like more information about where and what
Yes,
and how, and
we can do that. So we can hold off on, like an official vote of any kind. But I do want to get a sense of how everybody feels about it, before we get approached and know what we all want to find out. So.
And what was that meeting that was discussed?
That
at, Jenny? Was it the TSAC or?
No. It's been ongoing at a few different meetings. So I'm the last mention of it was the city council meeting, because they were talking about the safety zone. But when it was mentioned specifically about the curb cuts and the streets, that was, what meeting was that?
Okay, so I just was thinking that if we could go back and look, I could look through some notes, or some meeting recordings rather.
Yeah, it's probably online. It was recent, and I can try to find out, and I'll let you know. I'll let everybody know which meeting that was so it can be reviewed. I'll ask Christine Wallace. I'll give her a call tomorrow. That's fine. But it's definitely something that's, going to be on our radar. And, I did advocate that we at least be thought of and be approached if help is needed. That is what we're here for. So, I definitely don't want it to just be something that doesn't happen because, they don't have the funding for it. But I do agree with you, Kristen. We do need to find out more and sort of know a little bit more detail and more about what they actually need and what they can and can't afford and why not. But the conversations are just sort of rolling out now. So I wanted to.
Yeah, if they have a schematic that we could look at too, or something like that, that would be nice.
Oh, I'm sure there's a map. I can never see the maps that they post at the meetings. They usually have the blueprints of something, especially that project. It's been ongoing. But I can't make them out. So,
do we know how the conditions are at the fields themselves? I have not been over there in quite some time, except to pass by.
I don't know.
Are there any barrier issues that anyone knows about within the field areas?
I'm not sure, but I think it's something we should definitely investigate. Maybe talk to the Parks Commission, see how things are going in there. I know that the Parks Department has got a lot of plans for changing things over there in the future. So it's a good time to kind of get onto the radar if anything does need to be updated in the fields areas. They're also still considering moving the playground and making that a big accessible playground. These conversations are still happening, so we'll just make sure that we continue to be part of it.
Great.
Okay, well, so what is next then?
Next we have the handicap parking discussion about parking abuse and placard fraud.
Yeah, I'm still wanting us to try to maybe consider doing a pilot program with a detail, or try to have a conversation, really, or try to have a conversation again with Marshall Murray, or maybe just reach out to officers that do the beat about the placard abuse and the fact that the city's never issued a fine to anybody for placard abuse. It's a little jarring to think about because it just means that they're not checking at all. They're not even trying.
Ironically, Jenny, on the summary from this past quarter, there was one violation that indicated that the HP placard expiration date was not displayed. So
Really?
that was a $50 violation. I'm not sure if that was initially a $100 violation that was waived down to 50, but it does say that the expiration date was not displayed. So that tells me that it would be an older placard and that somebody flipped it over, because the newer placards have the date on both sides.
Right.
So somebody issued one ticket in the past 8 years that we know of. The expiration date.
But they issued a ticket, and
but that's good.
fine.
That's good. Yeah.
But did they hang around to see if that person showed up and if it was theirs,
Right.
and if there's actual fraud, which is a $500 fine, so it does kind of bother me that the criminal offense of the placard abuse is not something that I think is fully understood, or at least is even the police are concerned with, because that money that goes to the city coffers, and I feel like it's a conversation that needs to be had again, especially with the new placards that are double-sided. So I don't know. I mean, what do you all think about that? Like, trying to reach out and have a discussion about the new placards, and maybe if the police can put in an effort to try to crack down on the fraud of the use of the placards, because they're the only ones that can. And maybe even ask them, just put them on the spot and ask if criminal citation has ever been issued for placard fraud.
Don't we have people that all they do is ticketing?
Yes.
On
Parking
parking violations?
Parking
Pretty much.
enforcement.
Yeah, it would seem to me that if that's their primary job, they're not worried necessarily or being distracted by other police business, that's the place to start.
Well, the only problem,
use them
let me speak to that real quick, just so you're clear, and so everybody's clear on this. The parking enforcement office, they're not deputized by the police department, and they don't have the authority to ask someone to see their placard. So it's actually something that only the police can do, unless our marshal was willing to deputize all of our parking enforcement officers, so they would have the ability to approach someone when that fraud is suspected, because right now they don't.
I would argue, Jenny, that, and I think we may have talked about this a couple times over the years. I think that puts parking enforcement officers at a distinct disadvantage and potential danger. I mean,
Yeah,
police officers are armed and certainly more trained in how to handle,
right.
you
And
know,
I actually get the
confronting
feeling,
a potential violation. I don't know that I would feel comfortable asking the
yeah,
parking enforcement officers to do the same. And I don't,
and I get the feeling that that's why they're not.
right.
That's why they're not deputized, because they're not comfortable doing that job.
Yeah, you make a very good point. I hadn't really thought about that. I
So
was
there's a
thinking
couple
more
pieces to it.
they
Yeah,
would be in a position to notice
yeah.
dates and things.
At the very
Things are
least,
not
I think
confrontational.
it could
you
be
know.
worth having parking enforcement get into the habit of calling it in every time that they notice. You know, calling it into the police so the police can come over and handle it. You know,
Right. More of a
I mean, I don't think
collaboration, right?
I don't think that's too much to ask, you know.
So my feeling is that we have talked about kind of creating a subcommittee for handicap parking issues overall, and we've collected a lot of data over the years regarding citations, and I have pages and pages of spreadsheets that I'm happy to share. And I think Sean had mentioned that he would be able to maybe work with me/us. And I think we could probably loop this into all one discussion with a
Yeah.
couple of different points with the parking violation citation amount. Certainly the placard fraud. The placard fraud has been a statewide initiative for the last couple of year or two. So I think it's good to maybe loop all of that together.
Agreed. Yeah.
And kind of keep that going, especially through the summer. I think the busy months, and I think this summer is going to be somewhat unique as the pandemic is waning and more people are vaccinated and more people have been locked in their homes for a really long time and not out. I think it's going to be interesting to see what kind of violations come up as the summer months get busier.
Right.
So a possible police detail wouldn't necessarily be a bad idea in that case. So I think we have a lot to kind of revisit with all of that.
Okay. So maybe maybe Sean, you and I should try to meet and have a conversation. Like a 3-way call.
Yeah,
We could
sure.
probably do that.
Yep, that's fine. We can set that up.
Yep.
I think I'll have to talk to Richard Jones though and find out if that's if we can do that, or if we have to like form a formal subcommittee and have public meetings on it. But I know that we did something similar with this before, when we had the restaurant guide going, and some of us were working on that separately, and it wasn't a problem. So I don't think this should be a problem either, but I'll email the both of you and we'll work all that out.
Great.
Okay, cool.
Good.
All right.
So we have the MOD's webinar on outdoor seating recap from April.
Yeah, so I did attend the webinar. Lisa, were you able to attend?
I did. I wrote a little write-up after and sent it to you, Jenny.
Oh, you did?
I guess you never saw that, but that's beside
I
the
might
point.
have missed that.
You sent it to me, yes.
Oh, I sent it to you, Kristen.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
yes, and I read it and completely lost sight of it. I apologize.
Okay, I was gonna say, I guess I missed that.
No,
Yours
that
was the
all me.
easiest email to find.
That's okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
it was very interesting, and I also wrote up just some unofficial observances from last weekend with regard to various spots around.
Yes, I saw that
Yes.
as well.
We got that, and we'll get right into that. I just
Okay.
basically want to, you know, the webinar was pretty informational. Definitely a lot of challenges, a lot of little things can come up, but they did send out a copy of the video from that webinar, and I sent that to Andy Egmont, Matt Coogan, and Tony Fernari, just so they could all kind of review it. But actually, now that I'm thinking about it, Greg and Dennis, is that something that you might want to review?
Please.
The MOD did a webinar last month specifically about outdoor dining. So I'll forward you the link to that that webinar video so you can review it. But I don't think I have your emails for city email yet.
First initial, last name, cityofnewburyport.com.
Okay, gotcha. Just City of Newburyport. All right. And is Morril Morril or LL?
It's Morel.
Oh, just Morel. Okay.
I've got it noted, Jenny. I'll make a note of it in the minutes also.
And Jenny, you
Greg-
know me, right?
Sorry?
And Greg, you were a former city councilor. Are you still city councilor?
No, I'm not.
Okay, but I remember you from that.
Yes, I remember you. Jenny's running for my old seat, I believe.
Oh, good.
Well, actually, I'm now running for your older seat,
And my
your
older
Ward
seat,
2
right.
seat.
Exactly.
Yes,
Well, good
that's
luck.
right. So, but nobody's come up against me yet, so we'll see. Anyway, don't want to get into that on this meeting, but
So we'll review those, the meeting recording, and I will include Lisa's email in my notes from this meeting, which I am reformatting. I guess we've skipped over the meeting minutes for previous meeting minutes, but just so it's on the record and everyone knows, I'm reformatting how our meeting minutes look because of us having recorded meetings. So I will be including the link to the YouTube videos of the specific meeting, and then I'll just, without going into all the details that I generally include in the notes, it will be a little bit more bulleted, but for something like the webinar summaries, I will include more details and things like that if they're not addressed in our meeting directly.
okay. And actually, I'm going to send everyone the link to that webinar. And Kristen, if you could include that in our minutes,
yes,
that would
definitely.
be great. Yep. Okay.
Thank you.
And I'm going to, equally as suggested by Kristen, I'm going to work on reformatting the agendas as well.
Right. We can do that. Yes. Together. I
Yeah.
think that's a good idea.
We're going to talk about that. All right.
So
Lisa,
website updates. Oh, I'm sorry, Lisa, did you want to go into your?
Yeah. And that's kind of why Greg is here too. Greg and Dennis are here because I did forward the comments to Matt Coogan, and I had a phone call with him yesterday, and Andrew Egmont and Greg actually went down and walked around some of those spots, and so he can report on what Lisa commented on. But Lisa, go ahead and share with everybody in case not everybody got to read your comments.
Sure, I'll be really pretty brief, but I've taken a look at a few of the parklets, and at the point that I looked at them, there are a lot that still had quite a gap that would be difficult for somebody on a wheelchair to navigate from the sidewalk to the parklet. But there were more pressing things, actually. The Joy Noodle Shop down at the tannery has some tables that are really in violation. They're smack on a very narrow side of the sidewalk to get around the corner to get into the tannery shops, and it's not navigable past them, and so that was an issue. And the other thing I noted was the big parklet that's in the middle of Brown Square. They've got a ramp to get up to it, but it's going to give the person in a wheelchair a really rough ride to get onto it. And I don't know whether they can ameliorate that with some packed dirt or something to make that a little smoother. But those are the things that I saw. The other thing that I noticed initially were a few of the parklets had ramps from sidewalk to the parklet, but then there was a table right there. So there was no route of egress to a table once you cross the ramp. So I'm interested to hear what Greg and Andrea and whomever took a look at what was going on downtown on their review.
Unfortunately, the only thing we looked at was the tannery. We didn't do, I wasn't aware of anything else except by rumor. So we didn't take a look at anything else but the tannery. But to report on that, we spoke to the manager. He was very accommodating. We went outside, we measured out 48 inches from the inside of the curb to where the stanchions were. We were able to push everything toward the windows away from the curb so that he did get that 48 inches.
Oh, good. That's great.
So as it sits now, they're very happy. They were completely understanding. We did go down to Beach Plum because I did notice they were extended out, probably maybe only giving 3-foot access. Same thing, very accommodating. They're going to push one of the displays back toward the building. So the 48 inches there also.
Great, great. Yeah, there is not as bad because you can kind of get onto the tarmac and kind of navigate around it. The problem with Joy Noodle was it was right at that corner there with no way to get around the corner of the building. That's terrific.
There was a big planter and there were people eating there at the time, so we didn't want to move them. But
No.
the manager assured us.
Hey, I'm just happy to see something do well there.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful place.
So,
Yeah.
so Greg, having heard Lisa's comments then, and again, I did talk to Matt Coogan, so I'm not sure who he's going to follow up with, maybe with Tony, I'm not sure, but about the ramp at Brown Square and some of the parklets with the gaps. So I suspect maybe just, checking them all the parklets and see how the gaps are.
Yep. We can do that
then,
tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
We'll do
Okay.
that tomorrow.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and I mean, with the ramp, I would imagine there's an easy enough fix to just put some kind of material in there so there's a smoother transition. And I think probably maybe like rubber mats or something like you see put over cording could maybe be a little fix for some of those larger gaps if they can't be pushed closer in. I would imagine they can't at this point, but see what could be done. And yeah, let me know via email. Okay. And
So
Greg,
who would
do
you
you
like us
have,
to,
oh,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
Who would you like us to report to? You, Jenny?
Yeah, so do you have my commission email? I don't have a city email.
If you could send it, I'll get it when you send me the
Okay.
webinar.
Okay, sounds good. All right, I'll do that. Okay, cool.
I
So,
interrupted you. What were you saying, Jenny?
that was about it. That's fine.
I'm sorry.
I think I was just saying I was going to ask if you had my email, so that's fine. All right. Is there anything else that either of you wanted to bring up?
No,
Okay.
I don't think so.
All right, cool.
Although I'd love to hear about the Joppa boat ramp.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yes.
we can jump to that.
Sure. Yeah. So the Joppa boat ramp, the resident that their home abuts the parking spaces at Joppa had done some pavement improvements, I believe last fall, and repaved their easement into their driveway that kind of crossed over the edge of the HP spot at Joppa. So the lines are no longer there. There's no longer any paint or any symbol allocation. A couple months ago, we had this on our agenda and we talked with Andy Egmont, and we had mentioned that it would be a possible temporary solution until the resident was able to repaint the lines to include actual just physical sign on the little post that's there. There's like a wooden edge along the barrier. And I thought that had happened, but I actually went down there last week and it's not there. So there's no delineation of an HB spot at all. My understanding from our past meetings was that the resident who repaved his driveway is understanding that he's obligated to repaint the HP lines and put it back the way it was prior to his project, but I don't know that anyone has followed up with him directly.
Right. So, and I checked with Sharif to see if anything had been done, and he walked by and that nothing had been done. So he's going to try to follow up. And I talked with Andy Egmont this morning, and she's also going to try to follow up. And I believe they're going to talk with the Parks Commission as well. But it's not acceptable at this point. I mean, we're kind of getting to that point where it's not acceptable for it to still be that way. I mean, we're almost halfway through May. And you know, the reason that the painting hadn't been done was because of the season, and they were waiting for the painting season to start. Well, it has long since started. So it's definitely a concern. You know, it's the only accessible spot for the boat ramp. And I know Mr. Morrill, who lives there, is a great philanthropist with the city and the Parks Department. But that doesn't, you know, I mean, that doesn't buy him a free parking spot. So
does that bring up the point of, if you're looking at the boat ramp looking out to the water, that's the space that's to the far right, closest to that driveway. Would it not make more sense if the HP spot was the closest to the ramp and was to the far left, like further away from that driveway? And that would also eliminate any future issue if the easement person were to do other improvements to their property, that it wouldn't interfere with the markings of an HP spot if it were on the opposite side.
Is there parking right at the ramp?
There are, I think, 5 spaces, roughly.
Well, that's where the handicap spot should be.
It should be,
I didn't realize it wasn't.
right there.
So it should be at the ramp, at the boat launch ramp, not closest to that driveway. So I think maybe that's something that we should bring up
to
to
the parks.
Tony Fernari. I'm not sure why the Parks Department would have.
I think because it's theirs.
Okay.
I think Joppa Flats is under the parks inventory.
Okay. Okay, so maybe a
I could be
conversation
wrong, but I'll
with
double check.
Lacey Reed and Tony Fernari. I mean, I was under the impression that DPS would be doing the painting, but that the resident would be paying for the painting. Am I wrong to think that, Jenny? Is that how
I was under a similar impression.
Okay.
If not DPS, a private contractor, somebody that knows what they're doing in regards to painting the hash marks and the symbol on the ground. I'm under the impression that it would be, you know, DPS or a private, you know, company. But either way, that gentleman was going to foot the bill.
The good thing is it's short money. It's only line striping a whole parking lot. It's only a couple $100, so this shouldn't be much of an issue.
One space, right?
Yeah. So
I mean, even if they put lines for the other 4 spaces that are there too, it's minimal.
Well, it should, because I don't know what the easement looks like, but that has to be delineated also. People are going to park right in front of their garage.
Yeah.
Right.
There's no delineation at all of where their property is or is not.
Right.
So maybe we should have a conversation about that handicap spot should actually be moved to the left side where the ramp actually, you know, where there's access to the ramp. That's where it should be.
Yes.
And I didn't realize it wasn't. I'm never down there, so I don't really know what any of it looks like.
It's bizarre.
Yeah.
It looks very nice. The improvements are lovely, and it's just strange that the driveway is right there.
Right. Yeah, I'm really only familiar with the part that is the park. the
We're
private
talking
part.
stuff built in the 1800s.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, then that makes sense.
Well,
Right.
Right.
It's a lovely, I
Um,
love the house, so,
It is a beautiful
yeah, I
house.
love that house.
Yeah. All right, so I'll mention this to Andy too, that maybe the better solution is actually to just, that they should really be putting the parking spot right next to the ramp. Maybe Greg or Dennis, maybe that's something you could bring up too.
actually, I did bring that up with her when we kind of looked at that yesterday also. And
Oh,
we did,
okay.
I did bring that up and also brought up, why doesn't the city just get it done and bill the homeowner?
Right.
I think just be notified by first class mail saying, we're gonna do this, you're gonna get a bill. And just
Yep.
get it done. Because it's
Seems
gonna be
logical.
something like, he's gonna have someone do it, we don't like it, get
Right.
it done again. It's our responsibility to get it done right and just to bill
Right.
Seems very logical.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Very good. Kristen, what else have we got?
We have the Silent Disabilities Sunflower Lanyard Program.
Oh yeah, so this was something I got an email about that I'd like someone to maybe look at for me, like look more into it and see if it's something we should talk about for Newburyport. It's basically it's for visitors where it's a program where visitors with silent disabilities, the various mental health issues and cognitive disabilities and things like that, autism spectrum, get these sunflower lanyards that then businesses recognize and know that person has a silent disability that they may need to be dealt with a little more cognizantly and allow for a better experience for the visitor. It was an interesting program that I thought was worth bringing up and talking about. If anybody wants to pick that up and run with it, we could see where it could go. Any takers?
Revere does that. It
Wait, I
actually
was
works
just gonna
out
say,
very
where
well.
did you see that before? But that's interesting to note, Revere.
Yeah.
Jenny, where did you hear about it?
It was an email that got forwarded to me by Andy Egmont, I think, if I remember correctly. And where it was started was somewhere out in the Southwest, I think. I forget which state, but very successful. Very successful.
Provincetown does it too on the Cape too. They also do it.
Okay.
In
So looks like there's some models we can look at here.
What was that second town that you mentioned, Dennis?
Provincetown.
Provincetown down the
Okay.
Cape. Vacation type town too. A lot
Yeah.
of shops.
Great.
Yeah.
Is anyone able to do a little research on these types, this specific program and these other towns?
No.
Yeah, I can do that. I don't know. Yeah, I'll look into it. And if I have questions, I'll ask you guys.
Okay. It sounds
it.
good.
The best place to start is probably just call comparable commissions in Provincetown and Revere and see how they
Yep.
did it.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, so it's the Sunflower Lanyard Silent Disabilities Program.
Great.
Yeah, that's I will look into Provincetown and to Revere and ask them.
Okay.
Jenny, maybe you could forward that email from Andy Egmont over to Sean also. That might be helpful.
Absolutely.
Yes, it would be.
I will do that.
Great.
I'm pretty sure that's where I saw it from.
Okay. I think
okay.
that is all the items on our agenda, unless anyone has anything to add or additional topics that we have not listed.
I have a question. It's about sidewalks. So a sidewalk should be and needs to be 4 feet, at least 4 feet to allow for a handicap passing.
Correct. That's the minimum. It can't get any smaller than that for any reason.
Have you seen the house on Water Street? It's on the riverside. It's between the ramp and the sewer treatment plant. It's in there. It's one of those houses where they actually built out their foundation, it looks like, and I thought it was 36 inches, so it didn't bother me when I looked. They actually did go from where the foundation existed before out maybe a foot, maybe a bit. Yeah. And so if I'm walking there again, I'll check it out, but and if I get the address, I'll flip it over to you.
It's definitely 48 inches.
Yeah, absolutely.
And is this a new renovation, Sean?
Yeah, it's
Oh boy,
That's a problem.
and it's what's that wrap, that Tyvek wrap?
Okay.
Yeah,
So you can still see the house. It's still, the last time I saw it, it was still, at that point in the renovation.
I wonder if this is the one right on the corner there.
Well, okay, we'll try to take a look at that tomorrow too. So it's still wrapped in Tyvek, it has no siding on it?
I think it's all in process. So,
Okay.
but you'll see it. It's like you're walking along and it's like all of a sudden it's like shit. I mean, like, whoa, this doesn't look.
Right.
Right. All right. Well, thank you for bringing that
Did
up.
you get that quote?
No.
I'm not recording that for the record, but I cannot speak to the audio recording. Sorry. It will not
All right,
be noted in the minute.
You know what, guys? I've been attending a lot of meetings and subcommittee meetings, and I've heard worse, so I'm not worried about it.
I would agree. I would agree.
I don't think I got the entire word out anyway.
I didn't hear anything.
It's all good.
Strike that from the record. We're all, yeah, good.
All right, guys. Well, I think this is good. So I'll follow up, and next month we'll probably know more about what they might need over on Merrimack Street, and that'll stay on our radar. But if for any reason it needs to come up sooner, I'll email everybody and see what we can do. All right. Anyone have anything else?
Nope.
Nope.
Okay.
And hear a motion to adjourn.
I moved that we adjourn.
Second.
Second.
This is
All right.
Lisa.
Roll call.
Thank you.
Roll
Lisa
call
says-
on adjourning. We have to take roll call.
Oh, right. Jenny,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Colin,
Yes.
Kristen, I'm a yes.
And so
Hey, meeting adjourned. Thank you,
All right.
everyone.
Thank you, everyone. See you
Thanks,
next time.
guys.
And thank you for joining us, Greg and Dennis. Great to meet you, Dennis. And we'll be seeing more of you, I'm sure.
Sounds good.
Thanks,
All right.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Everybody.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Good night.